featuring Professor Ken and Reek in The Lion's Den.
Once again, we're back at it with the Lions Den, and tonight we're going to cover the different aspect that they're bringing against R.Kelly. How they, in my town of Hennepin County, they done brought up new charges from 18 years ago, and where is this really coming from? I mean, this is something the nation needs to, actually, look more deeper into.
Well, for years, I've quoted revolutionary brothers. I quoted Malcolm, I didn't quote Huey, I didn't quote Martin Luther King, I didn't quote Elvis Cleaver, Stokely Court Michael. A lot of them would say things like, it's an attack on the black man. And that's cliche, and a lot of white people would probably say, well, that's not true because it's a lot of black men that are not being attacked. But when you say attack, you look at the aggregate, you look at the big picture. The big picture is Bill Cosby, O.J. Simpson, now R.Kelly.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand white supremacy. White supremacy is a sickness by old white, particularly rich white men. It has trickled down to rural America and some urban white kids who, for some reason want to be recognized and want to be known and want to be identified. So they do crazy stuff in order to get attention, like how African Americans do crazy stuff, gang bang and shoot up the neighborhood in order to get attention. So all of them are adolescents and they're going through different phases of peer pressure. So, we understand that. But with this thing with R. Kelly, this is a straight attack on the black man. And a lot of people say, why would you say that? He's a pedophile, he's a rapist, he did this to these young women. Yeah, that may be true, but if you go back 18 years, and if for the last 10 years, you've been incorporating laws like the Patriot Act and human trafficking and sex trafficking, and then all of a sudden, the only people who are reaping the recourse of these laws are African Americans and powerful African Americans.
Correct.
Is it because Barack Obama was president? Is it because that they feel like Barack Obama took a stab at white supremacy? When white supremacy just simply means that white people are superior over black people and that white people rule the world. So to have a black man ruling the country may have trickled, or may have turn some people the wrong way. And I think, that's why you're seeing people like Donald Trump coming in and just being blatant with his racism, and all of the Republicans, standing behind him with his blatant racism and his bigotry and so on and so forth. It's just a testimony or a fact, or proof positive that right now in this country, it's a concerted effort by the white supremacists to attack the black man and to make the black man look like a savage. And if you look at the 1920s and you look at, after slavery, some of the attacks on the black man. If you go back and look at some of the old exploitation movies, it was always about a black man raping a white woman or being a rapist. And that's what they do. When they want to denigrate or they want to take down the black community, they instantly paint the black man as a rapist.
Right.
And that's just typical behavior. So all white women is going to look at black men as some form of rapist because, they look at black men as identical to Lil Wayne, identical to Travis Scott, identical to Lil Baby or Lil Durk. When they see black men imitating these characters and these individuals, they think that all black men is like that.
Right.
So if somebody depicted a black man in a negative way, then it has the same connotation. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So, that's the irony of what I'm saying. I think that, bigger than R.Kelly, it's about depicting the black man. And that's why so many states is doing it because it look good in the media.
Right.
Big time R&B singer, rapist. You know what I'm saying? It scares the hell out of white women. Like I'm scared. These black guys are rapists. And it's typical. But you got Weinstein and all these other white men accused of rape and all this and that and the other, and they're not being paraded throughout the media. They're not getting charges from state to state. You hear bits and pieces about it, but it's so hush-hush that, if you don't pay attention, just like a police shooting. If the police shoot somebody, it get real quiet for like 2 years. Next thing you know, they acquitted because ain't nobody breaking the issue up. Ain't nobody pressing the issue. No one is protesting. No one is really calling the police department out.
Right.
No one is calling out what they doing to the white rapists versus the black rapists. All they saying is like, everybody, man, it was breaking news. R.Kelly get at it again in Minnesota for rape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a black man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's not a good depiction. Then, why Minnesota? Because Minnesota's where white women love black men the most.
True.
You know what I'm saying? You go, and Minnesota have the biggest interracial community in all of America. You know what I'm saying? White women love black men up there in Minnesota. So it is apparent to me, and it seemed appropriate on the part of the white supremacists to depict a black man who's a superstar as a rapist.
Right.
Because if they could use R.Kelly to scare the hell out of white women, then imagine with the little dudes in the hood that can ride up and down, in Brooklyn Park and all this and other, and throughout the suburbs of Minnesota, all up in St. Paul. Imagine how they look. R.Kelly look bad, then they look 5 times as bad.
Right, because they're more tangible. We can really reach them because we see these people every day. We didn't have an excuse before to harass them, but now since these new laws are being enacted and unfolded, now we can, harass them for a reason.
Hey, man, we did a podcast about maybe 2 years ago, and we was talking about human trafficking. And I told you, I said, Reek, if you look at 2020, you look at Dateline and all these old so-called hit news programs that do a hit job on the African-American community. If you look at them, when they first started talking about human trafficking, they was talking about Philippines.
Right.
They was talking about Cambodians and Nigerians and so on and so forth.
Right.
People overseas. Before you know it, you started seeing African-American men get indicted all over the world. Right after the human trafficking laws dropped, over 800 black men was instantly arrested for human trafficking. And now that the sex laws have kicked in, they're arresting all type of dudes, you know what I'm saying, and particularly African Americans for sex charges, which is like you said, it can date back 10 to 15 years because of the Patriot Act.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's really an atrocity on the community. And you know what? Everybody, because they seen that surviving R.Kelly, everybody is saying, yeah, lock him up. Well, that's the same thing they did with the drug gang. You know what I'm saying? They depicted black men as ruthless, as killers, but at the same time when they was depicting black men as ruthless as killers, they was killing wholesale down in Colombia. You know what I'm saying? Mexican, they was cutting their heads off and sawing people down. But nobody talked about that.
Right.
Nobody talked about that, what was going on in Mexico, what was going on in Nicaragua and all these other countries. But everybody was talking about, a little girl got accidentally shot because 2 dudes having a drug war. And then, that kind of infuriated the community, and the community was frustrated and they was mad. So they was just like, lock them up. And the media knew what was was going on because they did the same. They used to these tactics. If you study J. Edgar Hoover and the COINTELPRO, and you see what they did with the Black Panthers, you can see that these folks, man, they master what they do. They put their hand inside a velvet glove.
Right.
And, they throw a rock and they hide their hand. And they good at causing confusion within movements. They masters of divide and conquer. So what they do is they divide the community, the old ladies and the working people in the squares from the would-be rapists and the would-be so-called drug dealers, who may be pretty much, just involved in some type of environmental peer pressure or whatever, or just in the wrong place at the wrong time, given the right opportunity, probably would have made a different decision. Had it been jobs and had it been opportunities for them, they probably wouldn't have took that wrong. But anyway, a young kid make a mistake. Now the whole community is like, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. And that's what they doing now. You know what I'm saying? When they talk about pimping and sex crime and human trafficking, the whole community is saying, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. And you know what? 20 years from now, we're going to revisit this same scenario. We're going to say the same thing we said when they said, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up in the 80s. And all these little young boys walking around here, practicing homosexuality, joining gangs and straight up killers because they don't got no man figures, or nobody, who can teach them the right way and teach them the proper principles and mannerisms. They're going to be in the same scenario 20 years from now, and it's just the same old trick, but different pony. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Revisiting the community.
Mm-hmm. It's just the day's news.
Yeah.
Instead of like yesterday's news. It's the day's news.
Man, I tried to. We gave them the game on the crack and the Scarface, and we gave them the game on the New Jack City and the Pimps Up Holds Down American Pimp, and how all that tied into incarceration.
Right.
They sensationalize crime in our community, and then they lock us up, and they know that we are impressionable because most of us don't have jobs. It's easy for a dude to look up and see Pimps Up Hoes Down and then say, I want to be a pimp. Because he see women giving men money and men ain't doing nothing but talking slick and dressing slick. I mean, that should be easy. I can do that. But what they don't realize is that, all this is by design. All this is social engineering. They engineering these young men to get involved into crime. And once they get involved into crime through temptation, just sheer temptation, they got a trap laying and ready for them.
Right.
Like all these dudes right here that been having sex with all these little young chicks. Hey man, listen man, it used to be statutory rape. Now it's called sex trafficking. It sounds real horrific. It sounds real traumatic. So a person that's in a jury listening to that, they're like, oh my God. Like you could say statutory rape. You could just say, okay, statutory, what do that mean? Prosecutor or district attorney, that just mean that somebody had sex with somebody that was underage and they should have knew better. But sex trafficking is like you actually traumatize this person and you put them in some type of sex cult and you really just went ham on them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because from, like you said, the previous years of saying, this is what you identify this particular person as. So now that they're bringing it on board with, the common folks of this country, now it's like, oh no, they're doing the same thing that the people was doing in other countries. It done came over here now.
Hey man, unfortunately for R.Kelly, man, they making him a scapegoat. They making him a scapegoat. They making him a scapegoat.
24/7.